we unosarudza ndiwe unoita decision yekuti andichada imba kana kuti ndikuda imba. Don't let anyone make that decision on your behalf. It is very important for people to know that. Don't let your pastor decide on your behalf that you must leave the marriage. Don't let your relative, don't let your friend. It's you who makes the decision. And this goes out also to us counselors and us therapists. Kuti, you are not in the right place to make that decision. Kuti siyaimba kana kuti ita so. No, you give the person advice. It's up to them to make a decision. Because if you say siyaimba, uchanyara mangwana, they found each other. They've resorted to other solutions. They've found each other now. They've come around and they're back together. Apa yo wakawapazi advice wombero kuti iyo musiye munhu unozonyara wava iwe. So it's not in your place to decide. My wife always says this. A big shout out to my wife, Pastor Glory.
Hello, Pastor Glory.
Unfortunately, she supports the wrong team, Chelsea.
Oh,
but
no.
Anyway, we just have to accept that. Now, she has a very strong statement. If you are sitting on a hot stove, you will know when to jump.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wait for someone to tell you to jump
because you know what you're feeling.
If jump awake.
Yes.
So if you are in a marriage that is dying, if you are in a marriage divorce is imminent, you don't need anyone to tell you. You know when to jump. Saga, it's up to you. It's your decision to make. That's the reason why I'm here to talk to you today, not to encourage you or to say divorce is the only route or the only way. No, it's not. You make up your mind. But I'm just here to give you some few tips or some few things or principles to consider before you settle for that. Now, the Bible is also very clear as to what we call permissible reasons for divorce. The Bible gives us guidelines. Can I also divorce? These are the reasons. These are the genuine, reasonable grounds that you can actually quote and say, because of A, B, C.
Okay.
I've got 3 that I normally talk about, and I call them the 3 A's.
All right.
There's abandonment, which is a biblical reason. When someone has abandoned you, completely, abandonment, you have a right to move on because was siwa, and you have a right to remarry. But however, abandonment, like nowadays, we're seeing a lot of people, they are navigating around in long distance marriages. And for some, being away from their partner for 5 years, 6 years, that can then end up here abandonment. And then naturally that marriage dies. So I'm saying there are ways in which one can actually handle a long distance marriage and likewise a long distance relationship. So we need to be aware of those principles. That's why when we're on radio, we speak about how to manage a long distance relationship so that you don't get to a place where you say, we've been away from each other for 5 years. There is a solution to all the problems that we face in marriage. There are principles that we must work by. And the second A is adultery. Affairs, infidelity. Biblically, you are allowed to leave a marriage. You are allowed to file for divorce. But again, there are ways, there are processes that are in place. If you want to restore your marriage, you can still do that. There's a way of dealing with that infidelity, dealing with that affair. Okay? So here I feel if I'm speaking to that person now that I'm here for.
Right.
Yes, there's been an affair, there's been infidelity, and I totally understand you, how bad it was and all that. But trust me, there are processes that can be initiated so that one can heal, and also the unfaithful, they can actually reform as long as they're willing to work with, it could be a therapist, it could be a pastor, it could be a counselor, it could be a relative who's actually, good at it. Because the idea is to get someone who's qualified and good at it. You can actually recover from an affair. It's possible. Then there's also abuse. That's the third A. This one, I'm very clear. I'm very clear. Guys, please, let's not abuse each other. Let's not get physical. Let's not even emotionally abuse each other. because those are grounds enough for divorce. Inini ukatuya kwandiri uchida counseling and you are telling me kuti uri kurowa. I usually advise that you go to the police station first before you come to me, because I also don't want blood in my hands.
All
So
right.
it's very important that we exercise self-control. It's very important that we also learn the basics of managing conflict. So those are my 3 A's. Now the Bible also says in Matthew chapter 19 verse 8, it says that because of the hardness of your hearts, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives. But in the beginning, it was not so. So meaning with all the above that I've mentioned, all the above reasonable grounds that I've mentioned, you still have an option to actually work on the relationship, regardless of an affair having happened, regardless of abandonment, regardless of whatever form of abuse. If you want to settle matters, if you want to work on the relationship, if you want to repair the relationship, it is still possible, because in the beginning, that was the idea. People should get into a covenant, and this covenant should be lifelong. That's why the Bible is very clear. God has divorce. It's very important that we get that. In the beginning, the idea was that people will stay for the longest in marriage until death do us part. So we have a responsibility to actually work on our relationships where possible. But I understand again, we can't say marriage, we can't give such advice. Kana stove yako yakupisa unozivapo kujamba. Don't wait for me to tell you. Ndakanzira somebody jambe. No, it's your decision to make, and you know when to make that decision. But however, I'm here to say to you, divorce is easier said than done. It is a tedious process. So practically, this is how I see it. Practically, if one is going to divorce or to settle for divorce, going the divorce route, they must understand the processes. They must understand that divorce is not just some legal piece of paper that they call a divorce decree. There are a lot of things that happen when people are going the divorce route. And I see divorce in 6 areas for me. Number 1, there's an emotional divorce that is happening despite the legal process. Because Muto Rambana, there's an emotional divorce that is also happening. So you can imagine what one is going through emotionally, that emotional roller coaster. You can imagine all that happening to someone. So if you are going to choose divorce, are you also prepared for the emotional experience that comes with that? So these are some of the things that we must consider. The emotional separation, the feelings associated with that person that you've been with for the past 20, 50 years, 15 years, 10 years. So there's also that emotional divorce. And number 2, there's also the legal divorce that we are all aware of. Divorce decree, but there are other aspects of divorce that we must consider. Number 3, the economic divorce. Getting, divorce is not easy. It's also very expensive. It will hit your pocket hard. I've got a statement that I once issued on radio. I said, Guti, if you think marriage counseling or premarital coaching is expensive, wait until you see the divorce lawyer's bill. Better to shanda ne muangu
make it work.
because going the divorce route is going to be expensive for us, and not only throughout the entire period of divorce, but also even after, because we're used to making your money together. When 2 people come together, yes, they will make more. That's what even the Bible teaches us. When you bring your 1,000 and he brings his 1,000, you both chase 10,000 instead of 2,000. So there's potential to make more money when you're together. That's why we must look at ways in which we can actually, work things out, repair that relationship. It is very important. Instead of just, at the slightest thing, default settings, we must calculate the cost. And of course, there's the 4th one, which is the co-parenting, or rather co-parental divorce. Yes, you are making a decision to go separate ways, but are you also considering what the kids are going to miss out from that union? It may not be the most perfect union, but there are certain benefits that are associated with that union that accrue to your kids. So you going separate ways, it means that your kids are going to miss out on a lot of things. So that's the reason why we must fight for our marriages to work. We must fight for, repairing our broken down, our dying marriages, because we stand to lose a lot. Not just us, but also our kids. Then there's also what I call the fifth one, the community divorce. Yes, you've been granted the divorce, but are you aware that there are changes that are okay in relationships with friends and the community? There's so much that then happens there. There's so much that we lose. The friends, whatever was happening in that community and all that. So there's just a lot. For instance, Maramba Najria, Pamopachi it won't be okay if you remain in the same church, so you have to change communities, things like that. So these are the things that we lose when we go the divorce route. And of course, the sixth one is the psychological divorce, the process of that mental separation. Kuti, right in your mind there, you've actually sorted out yourself. Kuti, I'm ready to accept that. So these are things that you face. And I must also emphasize, Kuti, not every divorce is based on good reasons. Many of us, we got the divorce route because we are emotional.
Okay.
Something has just happened. And we quickly
act out of
declare,
emotion.
We don't take time to actually put our minds to it and to let the dust settle. That's the reason why it's important for you to let the dust settle a bit, because you don't want to make important decisions that pertain to your future and the future of your kids in the heat of the moment. So Pampacho Mbomira, and it, because many people got separated because of wrong reasons, but because of our ego now, I just thought okay, if it was just emotions, I didn't mean it. I don't want to divorce and all that. It wasn't good Iowa because I said it must happen.
Just follow through. Yes.
A lot of people right now, they can actually testify to Vaka divorce, but later on in retrospect they said, what, this was not the best of all decisions. We didn't give it some time. Like Israel, people don't pursue all the other options that we have. Options is in outsourcing for help, things like that. So there are wrong reasons. One of the wrong reasons is my partner has changed. The only reason you have no idea. My partner has changed. They are not what they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Of course, everyone is changing. People change. That's why you need to actually normalize conversations where you talk about the changes that are happening within you. The stage of life where you at and the changes that are happening. You are probably experiencing midlife crisis. You probably have hormonal issues, that you're dealing with. So it's very important for us to understand where we at, during the course of life. Then there are people that will tell you that I'm not happy. They then prioritize their personal happiness at the expense of their kids and everyone else around them. This is called a self-centered approach. Before you make that decision that I'm going to divorce, is that not coming out of a self-centered approach? Could you are probably focusing on just your needs, on your happiness, and you forget about all these other things? So it's very important for us to take note of that. That could be a bad reason for divorce. Then the other one, the fourth one, or the third one rather, is feelings. I always say this, feelings can misguide you, they can mislead you. Who can meet out, I feel like this or I feel like that, they can misguide you. You really need to make up your mind, and like I always say, feelings will catch up with you later. And then number 4, that strong feeling here, we don't connect anymore, or we don't understand one another anymore. Of course, like I said, life is progressive. Sit down, try to understand each other. It is very important for you to go to workshops, marriage workshops, couples events, so that you are introduced to these tools to understand each other, because definitely over time people change, so you need to understand yourself. That's why the Bible says that you men live with your wives with understanding. At any given time you need to understand. You can't say I understand. I work with the information that I got when we were still dating. No. Life is progressive. At whatever stage you find yourself, there are differences, there are things that have happened. So be in touch with those changes. Then obviously you have communication issues. There are people that say, we no longer communicate effectively and all that. Come on. Communication is a learned skill. Learn. Be intentional about learning to communicate better, learning to communicate effectively. Then number 6, there are also people that say, we no longer have the same interests anymore. That's why you need to sit down, guys, and go through a process called vision mapping. Go through a process where you're trying to understand whether you're still on the same page or not, and how do you then move towards each other so that you are on the same page. It's something that you have to be deliberate about it. So what do you do now? What do you do? Number 1, when necessary, please avoid separation unless if violence is involved. Why should you avoid separation at all costs if you can? Number 1, you normalize an abnormal situation. Mautongo separate. And before you know it, a third person atoya. And also, separation doesn't give you a platform to work out your issues, your conflict. It doesn't give you that option because we're away from that person, so there's no need for us to be talking about it. So researchers tell us when you stay together and you have issues, chances are that you actually resolve those issues instead, as compared to when you are separated. Oh my God, there's so much. But obviously, apart from not going for separation, you must get counseling, and that's number 2. Number 3, please surround yourself with a good support structure. People that speak positively about you, Yes, get help from relatives, but be careful because as relatives, we are, emotionally involved in your issue. So we'll obviously take your side. But when you go to my counselors and professional, you get professional advice, which is meant to be neutral. So that's it for today. If anyone wants to get hold of me, please send me a message. And as I'm saying, send me the word NOTES, 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 to my number 0773 000 000, 0773 000 000, across all social media platforms, Married by Simba.
Pastor Simba, it's always a pleasure having you in the studio. Thank you so much for all that, man. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And like you said, you send a message, written notes, and you get all the notes. And if you've got questions, you always fire away on his WhatsApp platform. Thank you so much, Pastor.
My pleasure.
So this was this was The Relationship Goes with the Love Coach right here on Star FM. Comes back your way next week, Thursday. We at Star FM are sounding good all the time. It's 12. It's time for the news.
Now, Zim Papers Radio Broadcasting Division.